One of the reasons why I wanted to just keep the camera rolling as I do this detail on the engine bay, something very interesting happens. Out of all the detailing services I do for my customers, typically an engine bay detail, depending on how dirty it is, for most of us within 80% of the time or 90% of the time, we're just going to do a topside clean and detail it. They're not overly dirty, even if it's a daily driver, unless you're driving through the woods doing four-wheeling. I bring up this point because it's funny, and I actually don't mind it. I actually enjoy it. Most of my customers, if not all of them, if I'm just doing an engine bay detail for them, they actually like watching me do it, which is interesting. They want to see how it's done. So I thought if I just left the camera rolling, you guys can see how it's done. I'll make one video of this. I won't kill you with another one. But all I'm going to do is just simply mop up a little bit of the water that wasn't blown away by the blower. Now, for most of us that are cleaning engine bays, especially if you're a do-it-yourself or a car enthusiast, you may stop here. You may go, this is perfectly fine. I've got the light dust and dirt off it. I used the right cleaner. I agitated. I rinsed it. And then I dried it. This looks great. But as a professional detailer, I can go an extra step. And I want to make sure that this engine bay absolutely pops and looks absolutely amazing. So I'm going to highlight, and I've highlighted this dressing before. It's made by Meguiar's. It's hyper dressing. This is a water-based dressing, completely safe for the inside of this engine compartment. And because it's water-based, it's not going to hurt any of the plastics. It's not going to hurt any of the rubber hoses. And the fact that it's water-based, it doesn't eat through anything. And because it's water-based, it's not slimy. It's not greasy. It dries completely to the touch. So I'm not going to worry about any future dirt or dust that might get inside this engine and actually stick. If you're using something like, I've seen people spray Armor All inside this, and that's fine. No judgment by me if that's the look you're looking for, something really greasy, shiny, and awfully, again, they get slimy, they get greasy, they don't dry to the touch. So dirt likes to stick to them. So as a professional, I'm not a huge fan of those type of products. So I'm going to use the Meguiar's Hyper Dressing, and I'm going to spray it all over the side of the engine bay. Now, believe it or not, this water-based dressing, you can see when it gets applied, it's a little bit milky looking, it's a little bit white. You could literally spray this hyper dressing all over this engine bay, leave it wet if you wanted to, and within a couple of hours, it will dry, it will be dry to the touch, it won't look this milky white, it will evaporate, it will be clear, it won't be slimy. But for me, when I'm detailing an engine for a customer, they typically want to come out and look at it right away. So I want to go an extra step. I'm actually going to use my blower again and kind of force this hyper dressing into all the nooks and crannies inside this engine bay and accelerate the drying process. Because when my customer comes out and opens up the hood, or if I've got the hood open for them, I want them to walk up to it and go, wow, that looks amazing. I don't want all this pulled up dressing. And the fact it's water-based, folks, it's no problem. If it stays pulled up, it will eventually dry clear. It will be dry to the touch. It's not going to be an issue. But I'm going to take my blower again and actually spread this dressing out so it gets into those little nooks and crannies that I might not be able to spray into. So if you noticed, yes, I used a lot of dressing. Sometimes people will see me do that and go, wow, that seems like it's overly excessive. But I know I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I've used a lot of dressing, and then I used the blower, again, to spread all that dressing around in areas that might be a little tough for me to get into with my hand or even a brush. So I take advantage of using a lot of that dressing. Again, it's water-based, it's not going to hurt anything, and I'm able to force it into some areas I just would not be able to get my hand inside. Now I'm just going to simply wipe down any excess that wasn't able to be completely blown dry. Now what I'm going to do one more time quickly is just spray or run my dryer one more time, just in case I have any areas that might have some pooled up dressing. I want to blow it out completely. So that's that. The last thing I'm going to do here is a little extra step. And I know if some of you have made it all the way through this video, there are some extra steps that I do. There are some guys that will spray that dressing in there and just call it done, close the hood, let it dry on its own. But again, as a professional detailer, I want my customer to be able to come outside and look at the vehicle and it's absolutely ready to go. They get to see the finished effect without having to wait an hour or two. But I'm going to bring the camera in here in a minute and kind of get you up close and let you see how nice this looks, because it's one thing to clean an engine bay and get rid of all that grease and grime or light dust and dirt. It's another thing to dress it, and dress it properly with the right type of dressing. Again, the dressing I used is water-based. This dressing isn't going to allow dust and dirt to stick to it. It's not going to be slimy. It's not going to be greasy. Also, what it does is take all these plastic components in the engine and really make them pop. When somebody opens up this hood, they're going to see that the engine's been well maintained. And here's another point when it comes to engine bay detailing is, the other question I get is, why do we do it? Well, one, it looks absolutely amazing when you do it. That's great. Two, let's say you had an unfortunate leak somewhere in the engine, maybe a brake fluid leak or a transmission leak or a radiator coolant leak. If your engine is overly dirty, it may be hard to identify where those leaks are coming from if you've got a lot of grease and grime around. So keeping it clean is absolutely crucial. There's also something else that happens, which is kind of human psychology. When you take your car to be serviced by a mechanic, and if you're maintaining the engine well, it's always cleaned, it's always dressed. It's very interesting how the mechanic actually thinks about this. When they look at your car, they will automatically raise their level of respect for you as a consumer, which is important. They'll look at how well you maintain the vehicle, and human psychology, the way it works, the mechanic's going to realize, I better bring my A game. This customer takes care of this car incredibly well. I want to address the problem. I don't want to get it overly dirty. So there's a kind of a what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of a boy, I can't think. I'm sorry, but it's interesting how that works. So you kind of take advantage of making sure this thing is clean, so that when you have it serviced by a mechanic, they'll instantly raise their level of respect for you. It just happens, and that's just the way life works. The other issue is I'll have a lot of customers that will call me out to do this for their cars, and the reason why they want it done is, let's say they have a used vehicle, they want to sell it, they want to put it on the open market. What's the first thing that most people do when they come to look at your car, especially if you're selling it in the open market? They're going to open up the hood. Now, what's very interesting is that most people, unless they're mechanics, don't necessarily know what they're looking at when they open up the hood. But here's the deal. If your engine looks this way, even if the car is 6 years old, 10 years old, it automatically raises the value of the vehicle, and your car will stand out in the used market, because that customer who popped the hood and looked at your car knows right away that you have instantly and well maintained the vehicle. They're most likely going to be your potential buyer, which is important. You want to move the vehicle as quick as you can, and this is a great way to help and assist in that process. But anyway, there's how the engine bay detail goes. I have one more step that I want to do. Because I have this painted surface around the underside of the hood, I want to do something else. I want to kind of make that pop if I can, and I'm going to use a product, which is one product that I absolutely love, is Meguiar's Express Wax Spray Wax. This stuff is really a synthetic paint sealant. It's polymer based, and I just want to be able to wipe it down on the painted surfaces under the hood. The reason why I want to do this is that in the future, if there's any grease and grime that may collect on here, if I've got some type of sealant on the coating of the paint,